Good morning. I am delighted to be with you today and sorry that I can't be there in person. I'd like to speak to you as a medical doctor who has spent the past several years studying the connection between plastics and human health, and to tell you that there is urgent need for action in this space. So you're all familiar with plastics in the ocean, plastics on beaches, plastics in cities. This is well known. But what has become increasingly clear in recent years is that plastics also harm human health. And 2 years ago, we formed the Mindaru Monaco Commission on Plastics and Human Health with the goal of examining plastics health hazards across the whole life cycle, starting with feedstock extraction, transport, manufacture, use, recycling, disposal, and then finally we looked at the health consequences of carbons of plastics, very large carbon footprint, which is amounts to about 2 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions per year, more than that of Brazil. And we found hazards at every stage. In fracking and oil drilling, there are occupational hazards and hazards to the nearby community. Many carcinogenic gases such as benzene and formaldehyde spill from fracking sites into air and water. There are hazards in transportation. This is a picture from East Palestine, Ohio, where last year a rail car containing vinyl chloride monomer, plastic chemical tipped over, forced the evacuation of a whole town. There are hazards in plastic manufacturing facilities. There are occupational hazards to the workers. There are spillover hazards into the nearby communities. Here's a picture of a so-called fence line community beside a plastic manufacturing plant in southern Louisiana, USA. These communities are almost always poor, minority, marginalized communities. Plastic contains more than 16,000 chemicals, which are added to the polymer matrix. These chemicals add particular properties to the plastic, like flexibility, ultraviolet resistance, antioxidation. Many of them are toxic, neurotoxicants, carcinogens, and endocrine disruptors, and many more have never even been tested for toxicity. And these chemicals do not stay in the plastic. They leach out, they get into the environment, they get into people. They are responsible for many of plastic's harms. I'm a pediatrician, and I speak always about the particular hazards of plastics and plastic chemicals to the health of young children. If exposure takes place during pregnancy, during early childhood, the consequences can be brain damage, birth defects, cancer, endocrine disruption. These effects can be permanent, and there are no safe thresholds for exposure. They can last lifelong. There are also microplastics that result when plastic breaks down in the environment. These can cause toxicity by mass action, by their sheer physical presence, but also they serve as vectors for toxic chemicals and also for pathogenic bacteria. A recent report in the New England Journal of Medicine looking at the cardiovascular hazards of microplastics detected microplastics in carotid artery plaque of 58% of 312 patients who were examined, and patients who had micro and nanoplastics in their plaques had a 4.5-fold increase in risk of death or myocardial infarction or stroke over the succeeding 3 years. This is only one study. It certainly does not prove cause and effect, but the findings are very worrisome, and the relative risk of 4.5 is very strong. The main driver of the plastic crisis is relentless increase in plastic production. It has increased more than 200-fold since the 1950s. It's on track to double by 2040 and triple by 2060. And the biggest component of that is single-use plastic. Less than 10% is recycled. Plastic has huge economic costs that are associated with plastic production and with plastic chemicals. The Mindaru Monaco Commission estimated that these amount to about 1.26 trillion US dollars per year, and that's a very conservative underestimate. So the time has come when we must act. The Global Plastic Treaty is urgently needed. There's still much that we don't know about plastic and many questions that need to be answered, but we cannot use the absence of complete knowledge to delay action. And a key provision, therefore, of the Global Plastics Treaty has to be a global cap on plastic production. It's the only way to reduce the problem. Reduction of plastics harms by recycling is a laudable goal, but to date, an empty promise. Less than 6% of global plastic is recycled. Thank you for your attention. And remember that the problem is not just plastic waste, it's plastic production. Thank you.